I guess just I'm hitting on recruiting a little bit. Andrew talked about this, kind of changing maybe the mindset that's out there when you're out on the road. Have you noticed that, and have you seen like have you been able to tell if there's progress in that regard?
I think there's been a lot of progress. I think when you first come into a program, you're playing catch up, if you will, and I'm sure that first spring and summer we were in somewhat of a scramble mode. It's okay to admit that. What has to happen is that we eventually do catch up, and I think the class that we have coming in now, the 2012 class, gives us an opportunity, if you will, to really step back and be more selective and also have a bigger presence with the younger kids. And I think recruiting is not like a 2-month thing or a 1-year thing. I think to be effective in recruiting, we've got to start early with the young class, with 8th graders, 9th graders, 10th graders. And I think what we've been able to do in just this year and a half period, almost 2 years, is we've been able to solidify a class, and now we can work on for the future. And it takes time to build relationships, not only with the prospects, but with the coaches, the AAU coaches, and the people, the key influences around those prospects. And I think we've been able to make take some giant steps forward in that regard in terms of building those relationships.
Do you guys have an area? I'm looking at I know we can't talk specific guys in the 2012 class. We can't say by name, but I look at that class and you got Indianapolis. Well, you're spread out. I mean, You're really spread out. Do you guys have an area, or do you not work that way?
Well, I think we'd like to look at the Midwest as being our area, but I think when we have a staff like we have with diverse backgrounds, and we've all come from different parts of the country, and I think you can't limit yourself to a certain geographic region. And we've been fortunate enough to be able, with that class, to be able to go out in different pockets of the U.S. and pick up some quality players. Would we like to? Obviously, I think our first instinct is to focus on in-state, the Midwest, and then we got to figure out our bordering states and states within our conference affiliation, if you will. But we're not going to limit ourselves to a geographic region. We just have to make sure that we focus on the area that we can get the biggest ROI, if you will, the return on our investment.
Yeah.
Certainly we can't spend an inordinate amount of time recruiting California or Florida, if you will, but you never know. I think, again, a lot of recruiting has to do with relationships that you've built over time, and fortunately for us, we have a staff that has a kind of a big Rolodex, if you will, and we have contacts all over the country. And you know, you can get a call from a high school coach that you knew 10 years ago that has a prospect, and just because of that connection, that helps you sign that kid.
Well, how good of a grasp do you have? I know Andrew talked about being around Fran for a while. He had kind of a sense coming in here of what Coach was looking for. For you, I mean, do you go? How much do you, I guess, blend kind of what you have trained your eye to look for, and then maybe what Coach wants?
I think to be a good assistant, an effective assistant, I think you have to have a feel for what the head coach wants. Ultimately, the head coach is the guy who make the final decision. I think I'm fortunate. I've known Fran for 30 years, and we've known each other since we were players back in college days. And I think what has helped me is the fact that I have been a head coach. I was a head coach for 10 years.
Right.
I kind of get a feel for what a head coach is looking for. And it doesn't take much to get a feel for Fran. I think the good thing about Fran is very definitive about his likes and his dislikes. And I think I got a really strong feeling for what he looks for in a prospect. How long did that take? Probably one recruiting season, if you will, and just spending time with Fran, not only in the office, but when we hit the road in April and then the July period, and you sit there beside him, and a kid that you think you like, and if Fran sees him and Fran says, well, he can't do that, I think you build and you understand, well, Fran wants a player that can pass, dribble, and shoot. And he doesn't want a half-baked potato. He wants a kid that has all that physical skills. So I think it does take time to get a feel for it, but it's not something that you're going to spend 4 or 5 years trying to get a feel for what Fran wants. I think we've all in tune with what he wants in a player, and I think by the very nature that we have some experience, and I've been coaching for 30 years. Kirk's been coaching, about the same amount of time, and Andrew's been in the business a long time. I think you have a good feel for what it takes in a player to be able to compete at this level. And we may know what it takes to compete at a mid-major program, but certainly we all know what it takes to compete at the Big Ten, and you've got to have players that can help you win a championship.
Beyond that, beyond the physical, beyond the skill set, what's important?
Well, character is one thing that I know Fran is very big on, and kids that can come in and fit into this culture here at Iowa and could become a good teammate, if you will. I think a second thing, another intangible, is just passion for the game. I think I've seen, ultimately times, I've seen guys that have great skill set, they can score the ball, they can jump out of the gym, but they don't play with the passion that you need to play for, and certainly that's big with Fran in terms of what he's looking for. Kid's got to have passion for the game. He's got to be a gym rat, if you will. He's got to be a kid that you can discern that's going to work on his game, not only when you're there working with him, but when he's in the gym on his own. That's the type of kid you look for. Those are some of the intangibles you look for in a young man.
How much do you feel this 2012 class can be a stepping stone for you guys in terms of some of these guys have national names? Wow, they're going to Iowa.
Yeah.
How much can that help you guys maybe as a stepping stone, get attention from other kids you're after?
I think we've already gotten the attention that would help us. A lot of recruiting has to do with, and I've shared this with Fran many times, we've got to become relevant again, and I think it's got to be, in today's jargon, it's got to be cool for a kid to say he's coming to Iowa, and I certainly believe that this class that we have potential of signing creates that aura again. It gives us some credibility, not only in state, but I think on a national scale. And let's face it, kids want to go someplace where everybody else is trying to go. And,
right.
and also I think when you have a decent class coming in, a lot of it has to do with potential and projection that class is going to be a good class. That class is going to catapult Iowa back into national prominence, and kids want to be a part of that. So with that said, having a good recruiting class undoubtedly helps you with recruiting. And I remember being in other programs, and it certainly held true at those programs when you sign a good class and other kids believe that it's a good place to go and be a part of. And I think we become relevant again. I think, one class doesn't make it in terms of us being a championship caliber team, but it certainly is a good start for us.